Hey guys, Greg here, Bone Tactical, and today we're going to talk a little bit about self-defense and specifically striking. And really, striking is the most important concept in self-defense. It's the most important thing that we need to understand and that we need to have a little bit of a grasp of in order to really effectively be able to defend ourselves. So what I've got in my hand here is probably the most simple item that can be used, and we'll advance from there a little bit, but this could be a piece of rebar, it could be a stick from the ground, it could be anything. It could even be a lighter in your hand. And just that little bit of a force multiplier makes a huge difference. So I want to start off by saying always be aware of what's around you in potential of being able to be used as a weapon, and also being aware of your surroundings and situational awareness can really lend to giving you the ability of never having to defend yourself, never really being in a self-defense situation that you can't avoid. You can avoid almost all self-defense situations, but for that 1% situation where you can't avoid, we're going to talk today about the most important aspect of self-defense, and that's striking. Now, we're going to talk about striking with an impact weapon. It could be your fist, it could be your elbow, it could be your knee, it could be the hard section on the front of your head. All of those can be striking tools, can be impact weapons. It doesn't matter if it's even a pistol. That's still creating an impact on your potential target. So as you go up in potency, as you go up in effectiveness of your tools, it really doesn't change a whole lot of the understanding of the human body and where the biggest areas that you want to impact are. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and I'll give you a little bit of a martial arts perspective, and I'll tell you about what you can take from martial arts that's really well. And many martial arts are based in the East, and they tell us that there's as many as 700 pressure points, for example, or more on the body. And these pressure points are supposedly meridians, the crossing of meridians, and where we have basically flow of energy in the body. Now, what we can do as a modern science approach and modern scientific Western type people, we can just look at nerve clusters. We can look at certain areas that an impact can disable a person, can cause disability or things of that nature. So we'll discuss a little bit on Bob here, what we've got going on. And I would like to just talk about a little bit of the impact areas here. We've got just starting here kind of in the face region, we've got the bridge of the nose here, which upon being impacted causes extreme pain, can cause blurriness of the vision, and if impacted with something like this, it can cause basically even an explosion of some sorts of a bursting of that little area right there, and just the eyes filling with water and very disabling, okay? And now that we're talking about striking and coming in here, the impact points are of a great concern to us. But what is also of concern to us is the science behind actually being able to make that impact. What does having something in my hand do? Let me explain that to you. I've got some very small bones here in my hand that are susceptible to being broken. It's called a boxer's fracture. What having something in my hand can do is strengthen these small bones of the hand. I sell a wider range of the most effective edged weapons and self-defense tools in the world. Okay, so I'm coming from a background of really being able to offer you something that can do this, but like I said, it can be anything. This is something I sell on my website that you're going to have to look into if you want to know more about it. I'm not here to sell you products. I'm here to teach you something that's very useful and very important if you ever want to have the ability to defend yourself. But what's important is the mass and velocity ratio, okay? Mass, me being a big, strong guy, is nowhere near as important as the velocity of how quickly this is moving okay, my fist or whatever's going to be doing the impact, you can look at a bullet. A tiny little bullet has no mass, but it's moving so fast that the velocity is much more important than the mass, and it does an incredible amount of damage. So I want to think a lot about being able to move quickly when I'm striking. And something else we don't often talk about is the impact point. So if I have my fist here that's soft and going to absorb a lot of the impact like this, that's one thing, okay? And that's going to absorb a lot of impact. It's not going to transfer a lot of energy. But I have something that's harder than my fist right here with an edge or a corner on it, then it's going to transfer a lot more energy. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. And I'll go ahead and show you something else you can have in the hand that might have ridges and crests, for example, would be something like this, bone breaker. Now, you're upping even higher your degree of awesomeness and your degree of really getting in there and being able to do a lot of damage with something like the bone breaker. Because of these impact crests, what that does is it takes my fist that's weak here. Okay, it's strengthening the inside of the fist, strengthening these bones because now it's supported by steel or wood in this case. So those bones are now supported by wood, or these small bones are now supported by steel. And this cushy, kind of soft, wide section of my hand right here in the fist is now brought down to a very small point. So all of that impact power is now focused and increased a lot. This tool right here, the bone breaker, can increase the impact power of the fist up to 800%. So you're talking about devastating strength. You're talking about the equivalent of getting hit with a baseball bat versus just getting hit with a fist. Okay, that's the actual scientific difference that a bone breaker in your hand can do, or really anything in your hand like we're talking about. So I'm going to dumb this down and make it really simple. And let's just say this is a roll of quarters. A roll of quarters from the bank, okay? That's all it could be. Obviously, the roll of quarters isn't going to have this protruding edge here, which what we look for, but it could be a flashlight with a strike bezel. All right, so now that we've talked about what you want to look for as far as having an impact weapon, you want to have speed, you want to have the density of the object, something that's hard, and something that comes to a point. Okay, so you can transfer the maximum amount of energy possible. Now let's talk about the actual impact points here. Below the eye here, we have the orbital bone. And you guys are probably aware, you've seen my other videos talking about fights that I've personally been in, where a gentleman in particular had the misfortune of attacking me, and I defended myself. And a well-placed blow to his orbital bone happened to break that orbital bone, and the eye came out of the socket, protruded, and it immediately ended the fight, quite obviously. So you've got this orbital bone here that's very weak. We've got this basic line across here that you could say this whole section here is an area that's very susceptible to impact. So anything in here, very high chance of damaging the eyeball or even possibly breaking this orbital bone. Lots of pain if you hit this nose here, okay, bridge of the nose. Lots of, obviously, equal on the other side here. So then, if we want to move up, now we're talking about the opposite. You do not want to strike anywhere near this area right here. We're actually talking now about a great impact tool that the body has naturally is the forehead. So if I was to come in here, I could just very easily and quickly just move into a forehead strike, and a lot of people don't even realize that this is one of the hardest bones in the body here. Very strong, very hard, this part of your head. So it can be used as an impact tool. It's not something that you want to impact into. Nothing's going to happen. On the contrary, if you move higher to the top of the head, we're born with the skull actually forming in different sections, and there's basically a crack there, a very weak point at the very top of the head. So like a comic book, you can just kind of hit that top of the head point, and it actually is quite effective if you've got a force multiplier. So we're looking at being able to jab in here, okay, and coming across here. We're looking at top of the head is effective. As we move down, the front of the jaw is really not quite as effective as an impact target as you think. Throwing punches into that area is just going to damage your hand. You're going to have teeth marks on your knuckles like I do. You're going to have This bone right here, it doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. If it does do damage, the front of the chin, it's because of what happens back here. It's you're punching here, and then it's whatever happens back here that's actually going to end up causing the damage. So we want to kind of avoid this whole area down here. We can aim our shots in this little cross-sectional area there, like I talked about, and then moving over to the side of the head, we've got pretty much all the way around the ear. There is pressure points and nerve clusters, and the masseter muscle here is just an incredible place to impact. Right above that, we've got the temple. The temple is basically respiration for your brain. It's almost like a hole in your head, so it's very easy to reach nerves. There's a nerve cluster there that does a whole lot of damage, can even stop the heart. If with a very skilled, very pinpoint, you can even kill somebody in the temple. So we're looking at, if we go behind the ear, you've got back here, there's the carotid artery. So both of those, the nerve cluster there, can do a lot of damage in here. Just kind of aim below the earlobe and come in there. You can come to that front strike, and down strike is what we've talked about. Basically, the 3 impact sections we've talked about there, we've got this area here. We've got all around the ear. We got the carotid artery. Applying a lot of pressure to the carotid artery or to that nerve cluster in there can do a lot of damage or even possibly cause a knockout. We've got the temple and the top of the head that we've discussed. The masseter muscle as well, so really a lot surrounding that ear. Directly on top of the ear, there's not a whole lot, but to the front of the ear and below the ear and in the lower section behind the ear. So we talked about the temporomandibular joint along with the masseter muscle, and that kind of being the whole area where the jaw attaches into the bottom of the skull, being a very pressure sensitive area. We talked about below that, back here we've got the carotid artery, really a great impact to either side of the neck on the carotid artery, and then those nerve clusters in there, that nerve cluster that goes through there is also a great way to impact. We've got the base of the skull in the back as well, that basically is that part of the brain that's very close to the surface right there in the back of the head, is actually controlling the respiration and your life function. So the ability to breathe, and obviously an impact there to the back of the neck. Right below the base of the skull, you've got a little ball there on the back of the head. Right below that is incredibly damaging. So that's a point you can impact to the back of the head right there. It's illegal in pretty much any fight sport, in any martial arts. So it's illegal for a reason. It's extremely devastating. From there, we can go down to the clavicle bone. You can see the clavicular notch here, the suprasternal notch as well. And basically what we have here, where the clavicle comes across, is a great opportunity not just for hooking with certain edged weapons and things of that nature, and the ability to control with a karambit or get in there and do a lot of damage. If you're really doing something with a curved or hooked edged weapon. But now that we're talking about impact tools, about 30, 40 pounds of pressure can very easily break this clavicle. Okay, so the clavicle is very, very easy to impact. It's very easy to see where it is. And if I were to be coming in here and miss that strike, for example, I could come down here and hit that. There's also a lot of different axe kicks and things of that nature that we can kind of just generally throw in martial arts. And when they fall in a position where it'll kind of land basically in a general area. We can throw that axe kick for kind of here, and if the person dodges it or misses it, we can control it to where it falls into the clavicle and can actually break the clavicle. Moving down from there, we get into the sternum, okay? And you've got obviously a pressure-sensitive area right here. We can move around to the floating rib, liver, floating rib, sternum, and then the kidneys on each side of the back. Liver would be on your right side. Important impact areas as well. The liver actually can cause a knockout because an impact to the liver, which is basically about right here, can greatly cause pain, even like I said, even a knockout due to extreme pain and shock on the system, because your liver stores a bunch of it's a cleaning. It stores garbage for the system, and it can, if you release all of that, if you punch the liver hard enough or kick it, it can release some of that garbage that's backed up in there, and it will actually stun the system enough, your body enough, to render the person immobile. So looking at basically any of these strikes here, I'm just going to kind of show you how you can do some of those strikes. For example, if I had any of these tools, the smallest, most clandestine version of this would be a tool like this. This is the Bone Breaker Micro, but as you can see, what you want to look for is you want to look for these ridges and crests, and then you want to use these ridges and crests to generate and concentrate that force into these areas. Let's say you didn't have one of the most effective self-defense tools in the world. All you had was a piece of wood. Okay? You could still come in here and just hammer fist. Here, we talked about aiming for there. We talked about aiming for the temple, aiming for here below the ear. Okay? Aiming for the temple, aiming for the transmandibular joint, aiming for the masseter muscle, okay, all this whole area in here. Back of the head, depending on where you're at. This floating rib in here is very easy. It's a very easy strike. You want to have that basic. I've got a lot of videos up on this. I would advise you to watch my more in-depth self-defense videos if you want to watch a really full in-depth video. But your basic modern martial arts form is going to be in here, protecting yourself, side profile in here, protecting yourself, and then you can obviously drop from here and throw blows like this. Okay, you can come in here and throw these kind of strikes. You can do any of that kind of stuff. If you're getting more advanced with it, you can throw knees. You can use your elbow, back elbow, forward elbow. Okay, you've got a lot of strikes that you can do kind of from this type thing. But what's important is the speed that you can generate, and then also not really extending your limbs very far from your body. So if I'm in here trying to throw punches, I want to protect myself. I want to stay in here close, and I could just drop my hand here and kind of use my body and speed to kind of really land that punch in there strong. Okay, if I've got something in my hand like a force multiplier, then it really allows me to basically get in here and do a lot of damage. So like I said, if we're here one-on-one with this target, for example, we talked about being able to attack this clavicle right here. We talked about being able to attack this area right here across the front of the bridge of the nose, and then the occipital bones in here, okay? These are very, very likely to be broken. The bridge of the nose right here as well. Top of the head we talked about. Being able to come in here and impact. But look at what I'm doing. What I'm doing is I'm staying in tight. I'm protecting myself, because now that you know what areas can be struck, you're protecting yourself. I'm trying to cover these areas, because just having my hand here can make a big difference when I'm getting struck. Okay, so now I'm in here tight. I'm covering myself, and I'm only moving far enough to get that whip and that snap, doing that strike, and then coming back to cover myself. So I'm in here, I'm in here, I'm in here, okay? If you're shorter, it can be in here, all right? Like we talked about, we can throw elbows, okay? Elbows, open hand strikes to the ear. We can throw open hand strikes to the nose. All of these are good things, but if you don't have a force multiplier like this, then you do want to use elbows, okay? You do want to use elbows. You do want to use open hands. You want to use ridge hand. Okay? In here, ridge hand. Knife hand you can use. You can use your knees, okay, coming in here. And like we talked about that axe kick, I can throw up that axe kick and then try and drop it on the target here. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is here and then dropping in kind of a very slow motion for you guys. And it's basically going to impact that collarbone. It's going to have the option of coming down here, also striking here. We're talking about getting more advanced and really moving up and doing a lot of different stuff. But I hope you guys like this video. I'll go ahead and give you guys a little quick view of some of the tools that we're working with today. So what we've got is the breaker, all right, obviously. We talked about this a little bit. Stainless steel version. We've got the Bone Breaker Micro. We've got the impact weapon also available from BoneTactical.com that has a hidden purpose inside of this. If you guys know what it is, comment below. If not, you're going to have to look on the website to find out what's inside of this. We've got the bone opener. All right, these are all options and very quick release. Everything now is in stock and shipping with this quick release S-clip. All right, quick release S-clip. Let me know what you guys thought of this video. Let me know what you want to see more of. A lot of you guys have been asking about how to use some of the stuff that I make. These are, for example, handmade. I hand make these. And how do a lot of people, it's not necessarily inherent. You can't just do this if you don't have the level of experience with martial arts and striking and physical altercations that I do, then you may not have the experience to just look at this and know what it is. That's also why it's great to carry, because I bring them on airplanes all the time, and the TSA security looks at it and they don't know what it is, and they let me on the plane with something that's absolutely dangerous with knowledge. Thanks for watching. Bone out.